All right, so get ready, because today we're going to be exploring the world of supercentenarians.
Hmm.
These are people who live past 110.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're going to be diving into some new research that has us questioning whether those incredible ages are uh, always legit.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating area of study. And, this research really makes you think twice about what we think we know about living a super long life.
Right. Because we're talking about people claiming to live well past a century.
Yeah.
And this new research is saying some of them might be kind of stretching the truth.
Yeah, that's the big takeaway here. And it's not just about, individuals wanting to be recognized for incredible longevity.
Right.
This goes a bit deeper. This new research suggests a connection between these exaggerated ages and possible pension fraud.
Ooh, okay. Now that's getting interesting. Tell me more.
So this research comes out of Oxford by Saul Newman, and they basically looked at global supercentenarian records.
Yeah.
And they found a very surprising correlation. Areas with higher poverty and crime often report the highest numbers of supercentenarians.
Really? That's wild. I would think it'd be the opposite.
It seems logical, right?
Yeah, you'd think places with better healthcare and living conditions would have more people reaching those ages.
Exactly. But the data tells a different story. And this is where the idea of fraud comes in. Imagine you're in a tough economic situation. You have a
Gosh.
relative who's passed away, and their birth records from a century ago are a little, shall we say, flexible.
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Bumping up their age by a few years. On paper, that could mean keep getting that pension money.
Exactly. And this study really highlights how that incentive, particularly in regions facing economic hardship, might be contributing to these inflated age claims.
Wow.
And it's not just about individual families either.
Really?
This research found some pretty compelling examples on a much larger scale.
Like what? Give me the juicy details.
All right, so let's take a look at historical birth records in the U.S.
Okay.
The study found a suspiciously high number of reported supercentenarians with birthdays on conveniently easy-to-remember dates, like the 1st or 15th of the month.
Oh, come.
It's almost as if someone just, picked a random easy date,
Yeah, a little fishy.
right?
Makes you wonder if those dates were ever accurate in the first place.
Exactly. And it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
When the U.S. transitioned to requiring those formal birth registrations, there was a huge 80% drop in reported supercentenarians.
80%. That's enormous.
Yeah.
It's like those more accurate records came into play and poof, all those supposed supercentenarians vanished.
Exactly. It just goes to show how unreliable age data can be, especially when we're dealing with records over a century old.
So this isn't just an American thing.
Not at all. The study found similar patterns in other parts of the world. Italy, for example, showed a strong correlation between poorer regions and a higher concentration of reported supercentenarians. Again, not what you'd expect.
It's like the opposite of logic.
Right. And then there's the fascinating case of Tower Hamlets in London. It's a borough known for its economic struggle, and they found a suspiciously low number of people in the age group just below supercentenarian status.
Wait, I'm confused now. Wouldn't you expect fewer people as you go up in those age groups?
You would, but in this case, the drop-off was dramatic, right below that 110-year mark.
So you're saying there's a good chance those folks weren't actually pushing a 110, but maybe fudging the numbers a bit for those sweet pension benefits?
It's a strong possibility. While we can't definitively call every case fraudulent, the pattern is pretty compelling.
So what you're saying is, my chances of retiring early on, Great Aunt Mildred's pension by tweaking her birth year, aren't as unrealistic as I thought. But really, though, this throws a wrench into everything we thought we knew about longevity.
It seems you're catching on, and that's what we'll dive into next. Let's talk about those implications. This isn't just about setting the record straight on who has the oldest citizens. This has the potential to really shake things up for the entire field of longevity research. What happens if the data we've been relying on, the stuff about what helps people live to those extreme ages, what if it's based on inflated numbers?
It's like finding out those crazy weight loss ads were all paid actors or something.
Yeah.
So if we can't really trust all those super old ages, what does that mean for our understanding of how long humans can actually live?
That's the million-dollar question. And it brings up this idea of a potential lifespan plateau.
A plateau. Are you saying there's like a ceiling on how long humans can live?
Well, current research seems to suggest that there might be a natural limit. You see, even with all the advancements we've made in medicine, with things like diet and exercise, global average life expectancy, it seems to be leveling off around 100 years old.
Okay, so 100, yeah, it's still pretty good. But I got to say, part of me is bummed we're not all going to be cruising around in flying cars at 150.
I hear you. And hey, who knows what the future holds? But for now, it seems like Reaching those supercentenarian ages, let alone going beyond them, might require some seriously radical breakthroughs.
Okay, so what are we talking here? Designer genes, bionic body parts. Fill me in. What kind of breakthroughs would we need to get past this so-called lifespan plateau?
Well, genetic manipulation is a big area of research right now.
Right.
But it's complicated. We have to consider the ethics, the potential consequences. We can't just, tweak our DNA and call it a day.
Right. Even if we could, like, slow down aging by messing with our genes, our bodies are still going to wear out. Eventually, organs fail, things happen. It's kind of inevitable.
It is. It's like trying to keep a classic car running forever. You can replace the parts, you can give it a fresh coat of paint, but time always catches up eventually.
So besides all this gene editing stuff, what about those futuristic ideas we hear about, like uploading our minds into computers? Is that going to be the key to, like, outsmarting our biological clocks?
Now, that's where things get really interesting. The idea of combining human consciousness with technology is something that some futurists think might hold the key to really extreme life extension.
Okay, now we're talking full-on sci-fi movie territory. But seriously, is that even remotely possible, or is that just a cool concept for now?
It's definitely still in the speculation phase,
Okay.
but there are researchers working on things like brain-computer interfaces and advanced AI that could maybe possibly pave the way for that kind of human electronics integration sometime in the very distant future.
So not something I need to add to my calendar for next week.
Not quite yet. While it's definitely exciting to think about, we got to make sure we're separating what's currently doable from what might be doable way, way down the line.
So while Silicon Valley might be dumping tons of cash into immortality research, it sounds like for now we're kind of stuck with these biological limitations.
For now, yes. But even if we can't all shoot for becoming record-breaking supercentenarians, there's still a lot to learn from all of this.
Like what? I could use some good news after all this talk about lifespan plateaus and possible fraud.
Well, I think this whole thing reminds us that we can't just accept everything we hear at face value, especially when it comes to health and longevity, It really highlights how important it is to be critical thinkers, to question things, to look for solid evidence.
So basically, this whole thing has been like a crash course in how to be skeptical about all this, anti-aging information out there.
Right. It's so easy to get caught up in all the hype about, the latest longevity trends or those miracle cures you see online. But this research really reminds us to take a step back and ask ourselves, okay, what's the actual evidence here?
Totally. It's like that saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Exactly. And I think this deep dive has shown us that there's no magic bullet for aging, no matter how much some people might want to believe in that fountain of youth.
Right. So no shortcuts to becoming a supercentenarian.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we can't still try to live a long and healthy life, right?
Absolutely not. There are so many things we can do to influence our health span, even if those extreme ages are, out of reach for most of us.
Right.
It comes down to focusing on what we know actually makes a difference. Things like a healthy lifestyle, going to the doctor when you're supposed to, and also just having a realistic understanding of what it means to age.
So it's more about the quality of life than just trying to hit some magic number on your birth certificate.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe someday in the future we will have those breakthroughs that let us live way longer.
Yeah, you never know.
But until then, let's just focus on making the most of the time we have.
I love that. Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. It's been so interesting to really dig into this whole world of supercentenarians. And I think we learned a lot about how things aren't always what they seem.
Definitely. And it just shows how important it is to stay curious, to keep asking questions, and to think critically about new information.
Couldn't agree more. So next time you run into someone who says they're 120 years old, maybe take it with a grain of salt and remember everything we talked about today.
And never stop exploring those big questions about life and longevity.
Well said. Until next time, everybody, keep those brains buzzing and stay curious.